Right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm a real alcoholic named Demone, and my sobriety date is May 18th, 1997. And today I'd like to make that same deep personal commitment not to take a drink or a drug just for today. And I appreciate you all's commitment to sobriety. My sponsor's name is Larry G, and my home group is Certain Steps. We meet every Friday and Monday at 5 o'clock at the Boom at the Recovery Room up in Santa Clarita. So if you ever need a good meeting on Zoom and in person, come on down. Zoom ID 799-717-2862. We won't mind. You come down and have a cup of coffee with us. We even got bathrooms. You can get rid of a cup of coffee. Happy birthday to everyone that celebrated. And congratulations to your milestones as well. And thank you, Bruce, for allowing me to come to your home group and carry this AA message. This is a fine AA group and some good-looking alcoholics up in there. You know, man, I tell you, I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude and appreciation for the program. You know, alcoholism is a family disease, you know, and I got one of those dysfunctional families. I know I was in a dysfunctional family because I asked my sponsor when a counselor was talking about dysfunctional families, I asked him, was my family dysfunctional? And he looked at me and said, were you in it? And I tell people, see, my granddaddy had about 31 kids. And all it means is I got a lot of butt whoopings when I was little. And some people said in my family, you need Jesus. Some of them say you need Jehovah. Some say you need Allah. Some say you need Buddha. I said, I need a drink. And I tell people, even the dog had alcoholism. Because we had this beagle hound. His name was Face. And I tell you, Face had to be an alcoholic. Because he would do things. He would leave for 3 days and wouldn't nobody know where he was. You know what I'm saying? We'd be driving down the street. He'd jump out of a moving vehicle. He'd start talking crazy to a pack of dogs and they'll gang him. Sometimes he'd get locked up in the dog pound. He got shot for trespassing, maced by the mailman. I said, I could relate to him. It got to be my dog because he living just like I live. You know, I had a lot of soul sickness, and I needed a sponsor, and I needed the 12 steps, and I needed a spiritual awakening way before I ever took my first drink. Because, see, I had a lot of resentments going on, and a lot of fear going on, a lot of guilt, jealousy, and a whole lot of, and I ain't even had a drink yet. You know, I remember my stepdaddy used to beat on my mama, and I would grab my little brothers and sisters, and we would hide under the bed, and I would get a deep-seated resentment, and I had fear. And he broke my nose one time when I tried to help my mama. In our big book on page 66, it talks about deep-seated resentment. And I can remember I ain't even had a drink yet, and I was just laying in my bed saying, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. And I was crying in my pillow, saying, I hope you die, I hope you die. And when I said, when I get big, I'm going to kill you. I had a deep-seated resentment. And, man, I tell you, I had a whole bunch of other ones too, and a lot of fear and a lot of guilt. And my family, I tell you, it wasn't like Leave It to Beaver or Bill Cosby, nothing like that. It wasn't like the Cosby Show, nothing, you know. Hoes get knocked in the wall, people run outside naked, getting hit over the head with a jam box. And you go to school and they say, well, how was your weekend? And I'm listening to everybody else. Well, we went to the lake. I went to Disneyland. I'm like, well, the police was over the house. Seen somebody get beat over the head with a radio. And man, I tell you, the alcoholic family, I had to hold all that stuff in. And you don't talk about what's going on in his house. And then you put the pictures over the hole in the wall and act like nothing never happened when somebody come over. Living that double life. And I remember my first drink. It was a 40 ounce of St. Ives malt liquor. I remember the Dr. Dre video came out. When they opened up that refrigerator, all they had was just, double deuces and 40 ounces in the refrigerator. But there was no relish, no mustard or ketchup, nothing but 40 ounces. And that was it. I was on my way to Six Flags. So I was born and raised in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky. And I went with my little buddies to Six Flags, Kentucky Kingdom. And they had little dances up in there too for the teenagers. And I remember my friends gave me this 40 ounce of St. Ives malt liquor. See, I had it was curiosity. It was peer pressure because everybody else was doing it. And they told me it would change the way I felt. Because I was feeling like angry, scared, and guilty and inadequate on the inside. If only my parents would have been this way. Maybe if I was a smart ass, I had this type of money, I lived here, I was brought up like this wouldn't be happening in my life. And when I took that 40 ounce of St. Ives malt liquor, it was a honeymoon period. I was like, where have you been all my life? If God made anything better than this, he kept it for himself. Because when I cracked that bottle up and it had the frost hanging off of it, and I turned it up, and I just kept on drinking. And all of a sudden, I felt like I could whoop every mother effer up in here. I was 10 foot tall, and I was bad. Then I could talk to the girls, and I could do all of this. Went up to a big dude and swung on him, blah! And I was like, oh yeah, where'd all this come from? And it was exhilarating. I wanted to do it some more. I wanted to fight some more. And when we got to school that Monday morning after the summer, because that was over my 8th grade summer, all of that pain I felt about my stepdad and all that inadequacy that went away. And I could remember I didn't know till I come to AA, they said that was a mental obsession. Because when I got to school, all I couldn't focus on my schoolwork now. I played basketball. I couldn't even focus on basketball. The only reason I was scoring was because I was trying to get the game over with so I can get another drink. Because the whole time I'm thinking about another drink. The school teachers start sounding like, Charlie Brown, wah, 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 wah. Because my mind was thinking about that 40 ounce. I have to get back to it. I was obsessing over it. I couldn't wait till the weekend. As soon as the weekend come, I did it again. On page 30, it tells us in the big book that this is a progressive illness. So because it's a progressive illness over any considerable period, we get worse, never better. It started interfering with my school. I started taking that 40 ounce instead of waiting on the weekend. In Kentucky, it gets kind of cool around this time of year when school start back. So you take your 40 ounce and you put it behind the neighborhood store. And let me tell you, it has a nice chill on it when you get up early in the morning. Now, my mother thought I was a good kid because I told her, oh, I'm just getting to school early because I want to get some extra credit. Oh, you a good boy. But she didn't know I was just getting up early because I had to drink that 40 ounce before the school bus come. And I go drink a 40 ounce of St. Ives malt liquor before the bus come. And within 30 minutes, bam. Now, see, when I hit detox Back in 97, they said, Demone, you know what your problem is. I said, what? They said, you don't know what your problem is. That's what your problem is. And they told me some magical information that saved millions of alcoholics around the world, what Dr. William Duncan Silkworth told William Griff Wilson, the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. He said, Bill, you're seriously ill bodily and mentally. You got a physical allergy in your body. That's why you can't do just one. And you also have a mental obsession in your mind. That's why you always relapse. And I didn't know that when I got to school after drinking that 40 ounce, I was going to experience the phenomenon of craving. I don't know if y'all know about this phenomenon of craving if you knew. But let me tell you about the phenomenon of craving. Dr. Silkworth said that men and women, they can have a important appointment that must be met, or they may have an engagement that they need to keep. But they take a drink a day or so prior to the important appointment or date, and guess what? They can't make it because of the phenomenon of craving becomes paramount. And paramount means highest of rank, chief authority. Man, it'll pimp you. Yeah. The phenomenon of craving means the disease is your pimp. Because you say, I got to go to work. And then your disease say, nah, you work for me now. Go get another drink. You say, what about my kids? I'm your daddy. Go get me another drink. And then it say, I got to go to school. I'm your teacher. Go get another drink. And you say, okay. And you go get it. It's not entirely a problem of mental control. See, you make the supreme sacrifice rather than continue to fight. This disease is no respect of a person. And I didn't know that that's what my problem was. See? And the only way you cannot have the phenomenon of craving is you don't take the first drink. That's the only relief. There is no treatment for the allergy. The spiritual experience does not treat the allergy. The 12 steps don't treat the allergy. Nor does total abstinence treat the allergy. Man, what you talking about, Demone? Well, I'll tell you what I'm talking about. If you're allergic to strawberries and you have a spiritual experience, you still got the allergy to strawberries, even if you have 50 years or 30 years or 30 days. The allergy is still there, even though you are practicing total abstinence and going to meetings and working the steps. The allergy is still there because there are people in this room right now that have done some research and try to go back out and drink again, and they found themselves just as hopeless or worse because the allergy was still there. So the allergy is still there even if you have 100 years of sobriety. It's still there. You only get relief from the craving. It says there has never been by any treatment in which we are that permanently eradicates the problem. The only relief we have to suggest is entire abstinence. And that entire abstinence is for the phenomenon of craving, not the allergy. But if you don't drink, you won't get drunk. If you don't pick up, you won't get high. And that's why it's imperative we got to detox, put the plug in the jug. They said, Demone, how do you feel when you take a drink? I said, well, I feel good. And they said, well, that just let us know you feel like crap sober. We need to teach you how to feel good sober. Relapse happens while you are sober. The relapse is over once you take a drink. When you take a drink, that's not relapse, that's called drinking. The relapse is your state of mind that precedes the first drink. And we end a relapse by taking a drink or by taking the steps. Either by taking a few drinks we see others taking with impunity, or have an entire psychic change as a result of the steps. That's how we have end a relapse. If you read more about alcoholism, chapter 3 in your big book, you'll see the man at 30, he had 25 years, and he was dead within 4 when he decided to take a drink. Now, Jim, notice he had 25 years, but while he was stone cold sober, his relapse state of mind was that his long period of sobriety and self-discipline qualified him to take another drink. Now, Jim, he said, I can mix whiskey with milk. See? And you had this man named a jaywalker. He said, I'm just having fun. And he's getting his neck and back broke and fractured skull. And then Fred, he had money in his pocket, not a cloud on the horizon. His money was good, business is good. And he thought that a drink would make it better, a couple of cocktails with dinner. See, the reason why they put more about alcoholism right there is so that we'll be able to identify with our own thinking. What was it that I was thinking before that first drink? What happened? What was on your mind before you took that first drink? Some of us say, well, I was going through this and this happened. None of it really makes sense when we look at what the terrific consequences are going to be. See, I didn't know this, man, till I come to Alcoholics Anonymous. See, they had to tell me what my problem was in detox. Because when I took that first drink, it just started a road of self-will run riot. I was drinking. If you told me alcohol was my problem, I would say, nope. How can this be my problem when this is doing me so much good? It's doing me so much good. It can't be the problem because I see it as a solution. And as long as I see alcohol as my solution, you'll never be able to convince me that I have a problem. That's why some people that's been messing with you all have become codependent. Before y'all came to AA, they was trying to get y'all sober and they became codependent. They probably needed some Al-Anon, or they probably end up taking a drink with you. Because it's impossible to be in a relationship with one of us and not be affected. See, drunk or sober, you're dealing with an alcoholic, it's good to have a good program, and you're going to probably need some boundaries because we tend to wear people out. I know I did. Now, my drinking, I drink just like everybody else in AA. Any good reason. I just needed another one. Long story short, it got me shot. I lost my kidney, spleen, 2/3 of my pancreas. I had 2 heart attacks, collapsed lung, died twice, was homeless, sleeping in ditches and laundromats, and facing 20 years in the penitentiary, ready to take a 38 and blow my brains out. Got sober in a homeless shelter in Louisville, Kentucky. I think I qualify for AA. Okay. And when they told me I had this allergy, I was very happy. Because in my mind, I did not believe that I would live to see 21. Because in the environment that I drank in, everybody that I drank with was going to penitentiary for the rest of their life or getting their heads blown off. I didn't know how I ended up with God's grace and mercy and brought back from the gates of insanity and death. And my mama, who used to cry tears of pain when she couldn't give her son a hug because he was locked up behind some glass. Got to die in my arms when I had 17 years sober. And that's all she seen was a happy, proud son that was living life on life's terms in the sunlight of the Spirit. Happy, joyous, and free. See? And by the grace of God, the same judge that said, Mr. Cook, if you ever come back in my courtroom again, there will be no hearing. I became an alcohol and drug counselor, and he was in my group room. And I said, if you ever come in my group room again, I don't want to see you in here no more. And I went in his courtroom again. And I had a buddy of mine that was facing 55 years in the penitentiary. And the judge let him walk out with me because he knew that I had an entire psychic change. A spiritual awakening. He said, I know this man has changed because he knew who I was. And I trust the 12 steps in AA. The only reason you're leaving this courtroom is because Mr. Cook beat the odds. You need to go to AA and work the program with him. And at that time, I thought he was going to get at least 10 years because he had a PFO1 in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And normally it's not 7 months, 21 days, and that's a year. Nah, 10 years was 10 calendar years. We see you, buddy. And for him to walk out of that courtroom, that let me know something profound had taken place in my life that was beyond human power. Because Bill says something much more than human power is needed to overcome this mental obsession. Because I had asked them, sponsors and the AA people, I said, how'd you get over this mental obsession since relapse happens while you're sober? And they told me, you got to have a spiritual experience or a spiritual awakening. And my mind said church. And they said, nah, Demone, religion, that's man's approach to God. Spirituality, that's God's approach to man. It's a big difference. And I said, oh, okay. I said, so how do I get this? They said, you got to be willing to follow some good orderly direction. You know how when you ask somebody, to hold your gun, go see if the police is out there and you follow those directions. Yeah, the coast is clear. See, you followed directions. See, to help you get locked up. So now the same directions you followed to destroy your life, you need to flip it and follow directions to rebuild your life. You don't want to go to the jungle in Africa. And if you've never been to Africa, there's things that will eat you and kill you immediately. And if you've never been there, it's good to have a guide. Somebody that's been there on the ground, not some zephyr in the sky. You might need a soldier on the ground, somebody you can look at and say, watch over there, don't step here, don't go there, watch that, to live. Or if you're just trying to take a trip and you're trying to get to White Castles and you ask somebody locally, where's White Castles at? Well, you go down 3 blocks, take a right, go down 2 lights, take a left, go over the bridge, take a right, and you'll be at White Castles. And if you follow those directions, you'll be at White Castles. Well, to come into this new dimension, to be rocketed into a 4th dimension of existence of which you had not even dreamed, to be happy, joyous, and free, to be on a road that's really going somewhere, to have some integrity, some inner peace, and some happiness, and something that makes King Solomon look broke because you feel like you're the richest person in the world because you got the one who made all the riches, and that's the Creator himself. And nothing can buy what you receive from the Creator. See, that's what I got in this program. Now, if you want to get that, say you just follow the directions of a sponsor. I was just doing what my sponsor told me to do. I was going with my sponsor, just doing what I didn't even understand why he told me certain things and had me doing so. I was just doing it because I didn't want to go back to the problem. I was just going to me. If he say write, I write. If he say read, I read. He say go, I go. Even if I didn't like it, I just did it. Because I say, if I do this and it don't work, I'm going to tell you some stuff you don't want to hear. But I ain't been able to go tell him some stuff he don't want to hear in over 26 years because it works. Because I look up, by following those simple directions he laid out, look up, I'm in a new life. How do I get this resentment out of my mind? Well, they said, Demone, you have to get it out of your mind and down on paper. Out of your mind, down on paper. It says, in dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. So get it out of your mind and down on paper. Because Demone, as long as you tossing that anger around up in your sick mind, see, resentment is the gun that shoots backwards. It's like stabbing yourself with a knife, but you want someone else to bleed. It's like you drink poison, but you want somebody else to die. Get it out of your mind, down on paper. Oh, if we get a good resentment, I really like to hold on to it and toss it around up here in the gumbo pot of sickness and just stir it up because I don't want to let it go. This is a real good resentment. I hate that person. Yeah. Once I put it down on paper, he said to put down the cause and how it affects you. And I had to do my fears this way, my sex conduct and other harms. And I had a written inventory and I was prepared for a long talk. And I read this inventory to my sponsor and he didn't judge me. In fact, he gave me some directions by showing how he lived, showed me how to work on my character defects by his responses in life. And I just watched him and I was able to do what he did and started making amends to the people I hurt by paying back money that I owe and looking them in the eye and telling them that I was wrong. And I was selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, frightened, and inconsiderate. And I knew I'd never drink again once I'd done that. That's the results of making those. I knew that I would never take another drink. When I did the fifth step, the thought came that I don't have to take another drink. But when I started making amends, I knew that I would never take another drink. As long as I continue to do this way of life daily with my daily inventory. Because there are no new steps after step 9. Step 10 is just doing steps 4 through 9 every day. And as long as I'm practicing that way of life, what happens is God comes into my life and starts directing my life, and I can ask him, thy will be done. And that's the answer, is when God came into my life. That's the ultimate goal of the AA program. It doesn't get any better than that. That's the highest you're going to get. That's higher than sobriety. That's higher than any money you're going to make or prestige you're ever going to get. That's the highest that you're going to get. I'll wait if anybody gets something greater than the Creator himself. Because the things that we marvel at, it's almost like, we marvel at a dog that can bring you a beer. Man, that dog's smart. Brought me a beer. But we don't never marvel at the one who trained him to bring the beer. We'll marvel at a nice watch, but what about the one who created the watch? We'll marvel at this and that, but I'm talking about the creator of the stellar universe, the spirit of the universe, what Bill called it. See, underlying the totality of things, his ever-presence, being aware of the conscious presence of the creator. So when I practice that, if I do a self-examination, Bill talks about it in the 11th step, in the 12 and 12, when he says self-examination along with meditation and prayer, he said, taken separately, they're very helpful. He said, but when you take them all together and they're logically interwoven together, he said the result is an unshakable foundation for life. That's why when my mama was in my hands and she took off the flesh, is what I call it, when she took that body off, I was prepared. And I was happy, joyous, and free because this program in a spiritual way of life helped me to understand death. It was a guy who had shot my daddy and put a gun to my mama's head, tried to rape her, and I had 5 years sober. And when he came into the AA meeting, because I had this way of life, I had to treat him the same way that I'm treating you all. Ain't no use of being a hypocrite and try to act all spiritual, but then the person that I hate the most walk in here because I've hurt people's families. No matter how thin I slice it, it's two sides. I got to focus on my side of the street. 2 years ago, when the boy murdered my son, Demone Jr., because I got this program, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. Yeah. I go to kidney dialysis. Y'all probably wouldn't know it unless I told you, unless you understand my arm right here. Go 3 days a week. Just came back from Phoenix. I'm trying to get on the transplant list up in Phoenix and in Arkansas to get my third kidney transplant. And I've been on dialysis since 2005. But because of this program, I still walk 2 miles a day, do 200 push-ups and squats and pull-ups. I still do all of that because I'm sober and I got a program. It's not what happens to a man, a woman that makes or break them. It's how you respond to what happens. See? Because everybody in here is going through something. I ain't even got to tell it. I already know you are. Because you're not going to get through here, this thing called life, and something not happen to you. If we got up here, everybody going, well, this, you got something. And God knows exactly what to put on each and every individual in here personally to you to get your attention. And if you ain't had enough and he ain't got your attention, well, I will put a little bit more on you. Because see, how much time I got? Huh? 8? Good. Now check this out. Now, look at here. We have to give up 2 things nearest and dearest to us. How many people in this room right now is sober? Raise your hand. Okay. So, any problem, that's the whole room. So, any problem anybody has in here right now, you can't blame it on alcohol because you're sober. See what I mean? That's a telltale sign there's something wrong with this. This is an entertainment center. And alcoholics love opera. Me. You see what I mean? Now, when we hanging around, this Bill Wilson said now the alcohol's gone. So what it is, this is not no sprint. The marathon is for the rest of our lives from here on out. Bill say, look at here. We only mentioned alcohol one time, and that's in the first step. The rest of these steps have to deal with our lives. They say you don't have a drinking problem, you have a living problem. If we learn how to live, check it out. The goal of this program is not sobriety. The goal of the program is to have a spiritual experience or a spiritual awakening. If a person has a spiritual experience or a spiritual awakening, they'll have enough sense to have sobriety and keep it permanently with no relapse. You'll have enough sense not to poison your life with alcohol. Because a person pausing their life with alcohol and drugs, that lets you know something wrong with their spiritual status. And that's why I said we got to have a spiritual awakening, a spiritual solution to a spiritual problem. Because on page 64, it says not only are we mentally and physically ill, the alcoholic is spiritually sick. And when the spiritual malady is overcome, we're straightened out mentally and physically. Meaning the mental obsession to get removed and we'll never have to use again. Now that we're sober, we're dealing with the biggest problem. It's the greatest problem that all human beings have. You don't even have to be an alcoholic and addict, and what I'm about to say, it applies to you. Well, what you talking about? Any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. Because what we're dealing with, as soon as we put the drink down, and if the world's in a state and chaos that it's in now, is because the juggernaut of self-will. Is that my time? The juggernaut. Man, y'all seen the X-Men? The juggernaut, boy, he was doom, 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 doom. He busting through them walls and stuff. A huge, powerful force. You're dealing with a powerful force called self-will run riot. Now, I don't want to let go of two things nearest and dearest to me, alcohol and drugs and my self-will. Now, I gave up the alcohol, but most of us don't want to give up that self-will. I'm still going to do what I want to do, the way that I want to do, how I want to do it, and you're going to keep getting patches knocked out top of your head, and you're going to be one miserable son of a gun. You see? There's a poem called Let Go, and it says, when children bring their broken toys to us to mend, I brought my broken dream to God because he was my friend. But instead of leaving him in peace to work alone, I hung around and tried to help with ways that were my own. At last, I snatched them back and cried and said, how could you be so slow? He said, my child, what could I do? You never did let go. We have to let go and let God. But we scared because we don't know what's going to happen to us. But the lady, they just read how it works. Some of us tried to hold on to a what? Old ideas. We like pit bulls. Just holding on. It said result was nil until we let go absolutely. Let go and let God. And I want to thank you all for a wonderful meeting. Happy birthday. Keep coming back. Don't smoke crack and don't drink Jack.